Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome to my 40-day restorative yoga challenge. And welcome to it is new today. I'm really happy that you're here. You picked kind of a hot day to start because today is going to be a little more challenging perhaps for some people. But this is about your nourishment, your self-care. It is also a time for reflection. And so thank you very much for joining me. And if you have a chance to go back and start at day one, the days aren't necessarily connected to one another, but there's a bit of conversation in between some of the days. So yeah, so if you can do that, you might really, really enjoy that. So each day I'm drawing from a different deck and offering up a little bit of inspiration. I also wanted to say, this is a very outdated sign behind me, and mostly because of the location, but also my Thursday morning class, I have changed the time. So Thursday morning, Hatha is now at 10 o'clock. And these two classes are on Zoom. And the first time you attend, you need to register. And the link for that is in the description box below for both of the classes. So Monday nights at 7 Pacific time, I teach restorative yoga practice. And so there's an hour restorative class, maybe an hour, 10 minutes. And depending on, every day is different, depending on when we end, there's a yoga nidra. And so sometimes the yoga nidra is a little longer than other times. So usually at least 20 minutes of yoga nidra at the end, which is a really beautiful way to wind up your day. And I understand you're all in different time zones, so it's not necessarily the end of the day, but yoga nidra is amazing any time of day. So it's really a beautiful gift to give yourself. And Thursday mornings is also a gentle practice, but it's definitely more active and it's very mindful with breath. And my intention is that it is accessible for everyone. So yeah, so I hope to see you at one of those Zoom classes. I don't know how long those will be continuing for. I'm really excited to get back and teach in person, but we'll see. So today is going to be something completely different. And I have been thinking about introducing this posture. And I went back to this book. This is a book by Anna Forrest. And the first time that I did this pose was at an Anna Forrest workshop, and it really blew my mind. And what I want to say today before we even get into this is, if you have eaten in the last 2 hours, feel free to watch, but please do not do the posture. You must do this on an empty stomach, okay? Just otherwise you'll feel really, really sick. But this is intended for digestion of all kinds. Close your eyes, come to your breath. I'm shuffling Anna Torrein's Oracle of Echoes. And I just find that this deck really knows how to say it like it is. And I just seems to feel like when we're dealing with a posture for digestion, that this is an equally fiery deck that is going to let us know exactly what it is we need to focus on. Okay. This is the card from the cover of the deck. This is the trust card, which is really beautiful. Not what I was expecting at all. I was expecting one of those cards that feels like, it really kicks you in the behind, but this is beautiful. This is beautiful. The other thing I could bring into this card is that, so in the teachings of yoga, the liver is on the right side of the body, right? Over here is the spleen. And the whole idea with the liver and the solar plexus chakra is this is very much connected to ego. And if we can purify, if we can work through all of the energy in the solar plexus chakra, everything from anger to depression to self-esteem issues, and move into a place of trust, which is the key word on this card, we can bring the solar plexus chakra into balance. Very interesting, because today I decided to work on this particular area of the body. So yeah, you just never know, do you, what these cards are going to present. I want to read to you a little bit from Anna's book. So this posture has no particular Sanskrit name. It's just called lying over a roll. And you may choose today to sit over something this large, or perhaps a blanket roll. When I first did this posture, we rolled up our yoga mats into a tiny little roll. These are very, very hard when they're rolled up. They're not very comfy at all. So I would suggest a blanket roll or a small roll to start with. Anyway, I'm just going to read you a little bit here. And it says, if you don't get all that indigestible, non-nutritive garbage out of the way, you can't listen to what your body is trying to tell you. Lying over a roll helps you literally move that crap out of the way while bringing a tremendous amount of vitality to your belly, so your gut feelings are literally clearer. Gut feelings are part of intuitive communication. When someone walks into the room and your stomach drops, there's a reason for that. That's your intuition talking. Place the roll at your navel between the pubic bone and your ribs and lay down on the roll and relax into the intensity in your core. It helps break up what's blocking energy in there. It also moves out back pain, which can be very distracting. And when you're distracted, you're not a good listener. The gift of intuition comes to those who practice with patience. This is why so many more silver hairs are intuitive. And then she goes on to tell a personal story and has this lovely poem here from the teachings of White Buffalo Calf Woman. So that's Anna Forrest, if you don't know her. So what we're going to do, and I'm also going to set a timer today, because I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes. Then I'm going to take you into child's pose for a few minutes. And then I'm going to invite you to come back into the pose again for another, let's do 2 minutes the second time, just so you can begin to experience this posture. And I want to suggest that you take it in very small doses. And again, remind you that if you have eaten in the last 2 hours, just to observe, or to, just come back tomorrow, and you can practice this posture again once when you have an empty stomach. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is come down to the mat, and this is a large roll, a very large roll. Not particularly hard, because this is well used. So this is definitely an option, is to use a cylindrical yoga bolster. You can roll up a yoga mat for sure, because it has a good amount of density to it. Or if you have a cotton blanket like this one, you could roll up something like this. And then you're going to place this at the level of, so just like she said in the book, between your low rib and your pubic bone. So you've got your digestive area here, and you can do this. So you could do 2 minutes with it a little bit higher and a couple minutes with it a little bit lower. And today I just want you to find one spot. And so like I said, I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes, and I will kind of talk you into relaxation. We'll come into child's pose, and then we'll come back again. So you just want to come down on to the roll, and I'm going to start with it right on my navel center. Now I have done this before, so you can come into Sphinx pose if you want, first of all. Sphinx being with the elbows bent. Relax your lower body. And already many of you will feel a tremendous amount of pressure. And if that's the case, I'm just going to hop up here. If that's the case, then you may want to just keep the upper body upright. So, stopping back down here. because there's always options, right? When things are new, so you could place a couple of blocks like this and just stay here. So I'll set the timer for 3 minutes. Check in with your lower body, that your lower body is relaxed. And like I mentioned before, I like to have my heels out and toes in. And I encourage you to come into full yogic breaths. And if the intensity is not too bad, then you can remove the blocks and come all the way down or part way down to the floor and rest your head on a cushion or a block. This is actually easier for me to talk this way. And if you do have your hands, your elbows bent, and you're in a sphinx-like upper body, then make sure you're softening between the shoulder blades. Nice full yogic breaths. So when you breathe in, you should feel your belly expanding into the blanket roll. And when you exhale, you soften. And you can feel the small of your waist. And so quite literally, this posture, along with your deep yogic breath, is massaging your internal digestive organs. And so not only what Anna was referring to about the gut being connected to our intuition, there are so many, many layers here that are important to begin to explore. Soften between the shoulder blades if you're up, and if you're down, just deepen your breath. You might want to move your ear to the other side if you're resting to one side. Perhaps if you grab 2 blocks, you can come down to 1 block. Soften the upper body a little more. Or you can come all the way down and rest one ear on the floor, perhaps stacking your palms. And the lower you are, the more that the shallower your breath will likely be. So bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Bring your head back to central. We're going to take a short integration in child's pose. You want to tuck your toes. Press up and back. You can have your knees wide or together. You can grab your bolster if you'd like to have your bolster in child's pose. You need to have a block underneath to raise up the bolster, like we did. We've already done this back in an earlier day. And then just come down into child's pose. We're going to stay here for a minute or a little bit longer, just to integrate, and then we're going to come back for 2 minutes. Deepen your breath. Feel the expansiveness of the breath in your back body. And for those of you that are not comfortable in child's pose, One of the things I didn't mention in the previous video was that sometimes we need to have the toes up. So you can have something like this, and then I definitely talked about the block here. But if the toes are up, that provides some comfort for some people. And that will get also into a nice deep stretch in the low back. So the belly is still, we're actually going to go to a prone Shavasana for a minute before we go back into the belly over the roll. Take 3 more deep exhale breaths. And then very slowly rising up, moving all your props out of the way, come down into a prone Shavasana. We'll take a few breaths here. Allow the intensity of the belly, of the roll underneath the belly, just to integrate, to move through you. And take 3 deep breaths. And if you want to join me for a second round, bring your hands underneath your shoulders, press up and back. Perhaps you want to switch up your blanket roll for a smaller roll or a larger roll. And if you rolled up your blanket and it was a little too intense, you could always make the blanket roll a little bit smaller. Okay, so come back on down. You may come to exactly the same place, or a little higher or a little lower. And I'm going to set the timer this time for 2 minutes only. Again, you can come into Sphinx pose, rest your head, or come right down to the floor. Nice, deep, full breaths. Make your breath as full as you can. Come to counting your breath. If your mind is racing, soften where you can soften. Find some ease In any discomfort that you are experiencing, take 3 more breaths. And then bring your hands underneath your shoulders, tuck your toes, press up and back, remove your blanket roll, and then come right down onto your back. Come right down into Shavasana. If you want to support the backs of your knees perhaps with a bolster or your blanket roll. I encourage you to turn your palms open to the ceiling. You can walk the shoulder blades a little closer together. And then just let go. And come back to the word, the key word on the card, trust. Ultimately trusting yourself, your capital S self, trusting in the process, trust in your journey. And if you haven't covered up, cover up and stay in Shavasana for as long as you can. And perhaps if there's some residual effects of the posture, you may wish to turn onto your side. And depending where that pressure is, you might want to choose the right side or the left side. The right side is the ascending colon. The left side is the descending colon. And if you're ready to move on with the rest of the day, your day, bring your feet up, either onto your bolster, knees into the chest, gently rock side to side. This might feel good because the blanket roll underneath the belly is also very nourishing for any low back pain. So you may be feeling that, rocking side to side here. And then go ahead and turn to a side. Come into a fetal position. And you may wish to rest in a fetal position for a few moments. And then mindfully and with breath, make your way up towards your seat. And if you have time just to sit and integrate in your seat, please do so, rather than racing off. So after that posture, I encourage you to sit quietly and allow sufficient integration. And let me know what you think of that one, and especially how you're feeling, in 2 hours, in 4 hours, in 6 hours. Okay, so today we did 3 minutes and 2 minutes. I think that's a really good place to start if you haven't done this before. And then perhaps tomorrow at some point you can try it for 3 minutes or 2 minutes. Okay? Stay well, and I really look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Namaste.